So, as I said, we're going to talk about how you actually go about getting a website for your business. There are really two options for getting yourself a website. You either employ a web designer to do it for you, or you do it yourself. Now, obviously, there are different pros and cons with using either a web designer or doing it yourself. If you plan on using a web designer, the first and probably main pro is that you'll have a professional website design from them. They'll have probably been through some training, they'll have experience in the field, so they'll know exactly how to produce a website that will get you more cake sales, that will bring in more customers, that will show off your business. They'll have that experience, and that's effectively what you're paying for. Also, if you decide to use a designer, there's no time spent figuring things out for yourself. They'll take on all of that sort of techie things. They'll take on figuring out what platform you should use. They basically take it out of your hands, and it's really the time that you'll gain that is the main benefit of using a web designer. They also just take the stress out of it. You probably won't need to spend too much time learning new tech or new systems, although there still may be a little bit of learning after the handover for maintaining the website yourself. They can also, as I said, deal with any of either the technical difficulties or just sort of the technical intricacies of setting up a website, sort of connecting the domain name, so your website address, linking it up with your social media. If you have a newsletter, they may take on that, linking that up for you. So it just sort of means you don't need to worry or stress about any of the technical difficulties. The negatives or the cons of hiring a website designer would be the cost, maybe would be the main one. Depending on what level you're at in your business, it just doesn't make sense to spend a lot of money on hiring somebody to do something that you could potentially do yourself. If you're new in business, I would not advise spending a large sum of money on a website designer. It's really something that you can grow into as your business grows and as you start to generate regular income, then the cost will start to be less of a factor. But the cost is definitely one of the things to consider if you're using a web designer. You do still have to put in some amount of input. There is still some time required even if you're working with a web designer. You'll have to collate the information that they're going to use, you'll have to liaise with them, do some sort of back and forth, making comments on the website drafts that they go through. And the final thing is you may always need the designer to maintain or make any changes to the website, depending on how they work, what platform they use, or just what your technical ability is. It might be like an ongoing cost that you would need to keep going back to that website designer on a sort of maintenance plan, or anytime you made changes to your menu, you may need to go back to them. I mean, this can be a pro or a con. If you're just not interested in dealing with the website, then that wouldn't be an issue. But again, if you're in those early stages where you're thinking about every penny, then it's just a factor to think about. So the pros and cons of DIYing. The pros are it's free, kind of. Um, you don't need to pay anyone to do it, but we'll cover why it's technically not free in the cons. You are completely in control. There's no back and forth with anybody else. You just take on the designing, everything yourself. You're in control of how it looks, how it's laid out. And if you have a sort of creative background, which honestly a lot of bakers do, just because of the creativity and design required for decorating cakes, then you can be completely in control of the design if you decide to DIY. If you have built the website yourself, then you'll have built up those skills required to make any changes or any maintenance in the future. So you'll actually find that by the end of it, you'll have learned a new skill and you'll be able to just whiz through any updates or posting blog posts to your website. So really that's a really great benefit of DIYing it, is that you'll learn how to use it, you'll feel comfortable using it, and you'll be able to maintain it throughout the life of your business and your website. And that's really the main point about having a website, is that you're constantly sort of updating the information on it, adding photos, blog posts, And by adding that information, you'll start to rank higher in Google. So you'll be found more easily when people search for bakers in your area. But we'll go into the more complexities of ranking your website next week and search engine optimization. We'll talk about that in next week's video. The final pro of DIYing is that you can just take your time over it and you can grow into it. You can start out with just a simple one-page website, see how you get on with that, and as your skills grow, as you're able to dedicate a little bit more time to it, you can add the pages as you go. So it means that you don't have to have that big either time outlay or financial outlay at the start working with a designer. You can just sort of spend a little bit of time getting a single page website up, and as time progresses, as your skills increase, you can just add to that website until it's a sort of bigger resource for your business. The cons of DIYing, it is really just the time penalty. So as I was saying, for using a designer, it's that it doesn't cost you that time. If you're DIYing it, you will have to spend time away from the main income generator in your business, which is obviously baking cakes, baking various tray bakes, whatever it is, biscuits, whatever it is that your business does. Anytime you're not doing that, you're not directly generating income into your business. However, the sort of admin side of a business, marketing, that is all part of your role as a business owner. So it's really just a balancing act versus how much time you can spend away from the baking versus how much time you can dedicate to a website. Even though it is marketing and will generate you more orders in the long run, you really just have to consider how that will affect your business. You'd have to learn a new skill. Again, this is a long-term pro perhaps, but it's just the time factor again that it takes you to learn that new skill of working with the technology associated with a website. And that just leads on to the next point, that it's just time consuming. It might end up being something that you really enjoy doing, so even though it takes time away from your business, it might be time that you enjoy. It's just, again, another factor to consider. And finally, if design is not your strong suit, and website design and graphic design can end up being very different to cake design. I mean, I really like cake design, but I found I was better at designing graphics and logos and websites than I was at working with fondant and decorating cakes. I definitely preferred the flavour over the decorating. As much fun as it was just not my top skill, which is what sort of led me into doing graphic design and web design. So no matter how much time you spend on the design of the website, it might just never look the way you want it to, just because you don't have the knowledge of a web designer, or you just don't know which platform to use to achieve the specific thing you're after. So it's just one of those things. It may never look the way you want, but again, something is better than nothing at the start. If you're just a beginner in business and you just want a simple, classic, one-page website, it's a perfect thing to DIY yourself. And in the future, when you're making loads of money selling loads of cakes, then you could maybe think about getting a designer in to do it for you. So it's all about growing into your business. So what you need to consider if you're using a designer. When you're selecting a web designer, you should not just consider their prices, although this is obviously going to be an important factor depending on how much money you can dedicate to getting a website built. But obviously it will depend on what kind of website you need, will vary the prices. If you need a complicated website with a shop, that might add some cost. Obviously a designer with lots of experience will end up being more expensive, just as a designer who's maybe a beginner will be a little less expensive. As you'll know, it's the same in any small business. The more your experience grows as a baker, the more you can raise your prices. So just don't, as I'm sure you know, blanket think, oh, that's a cheap person, I'll use them. Do some of these next things which we're going to go through, which is check their folio. You'll probably have an idea of what kind of website you want. So if you have a good look through their portfolio, and are they designing the kind of site that you want? It doesn't even have to be that they've done a lot of cake websites. It could just be the overall look and feel of the website, the sort of style that they go for, the palette that they go for. Use that to help you select what kind of designer you'd like to work with, sorry. You can also start to get a feel for their personality through their social media, through their Instagram and their Twitter, their Facebook page. What's really important when you're working with a designer is that you can get on really well, that you can have a good sort of back and forth relationship, because you will have to sort of comment on the designs they put forward. So there will be sort of some discussion and some back and forth. So it's important that you guys could have a good sort of working relationship. And once you get a feel for what they're like through their online platforms, then definitely arrange a consultation call with the designer. It'll usually be a sort of 15 to 30-minute free call where you'll talk over what you require, and it'll give you both a chance to see if you're going to click as a design team. It's really important that you've just got that sort of back and forth rapport, that you know you'll be able to both end up with a product that you're happy with. Also ask about the post handover support. As I talked about earlier, you may find that you always want a designer to maintain your website, but you might find that you'd actually like to do a little bit of that yourself. So find out if they do tutorials at the end of their handover. Do they have sort of videos that they can give you at the end to show you how to do basic tasks? Do they do a walk through the site with you to explain how to use it? Find that out at the start so you know exactly what to expect when you hand over at the end of the project. When you're then working with the designer, before you start, consider exactly what it is you want from the website. That'll really help them to hone in on the overall design and how to prioritize different factors within the website. So, I mean, obviously a website will do a number of things, but is it mainly going to be a shop where people can buy things? Is it mainly a portfolio for you to showcase your work? Is it a place where you want people to place their orders? Is it a place where you're going to have a blog that will keep everybody up to date with how you're doing or what you're doing in your business? There's usually a sort of key overriding factor of a website, the thing that you're selling, the thing that you're wanting them to do. So if you have an idea of that in your head before you start, that'll help start the conversation with the designer. It's also really important to have a batch of high quality images for your designer to work with. It's really difficult, even if you're working with the best designer in the land. It's really hard if the images aren't up to the same quality to make the website look professional. Now, if you're at the early stages of your business, or if you're new in business, you'll probably find you don't have a lot of images, but try and gather together sort of 5 to 10 really well shot images. So they've got some good lighting, they've got plain backgrounds, they're your absolute best work. Try and give them a kind of similar feel when you're photographing the cakes as well. So they've all got maybe the same background, they all have a similar palette. You don't need lots and lots of images, but having a few really well shot images will what really make the website stand out and really look like a professional website. You'll also have to think about gathering together the text for all the different pages. So there'll be your home page, maybe an about page, your menu, pricing, maybe the frequently asked questions page. Start to gather that together as you're looking to select your web designer, and then when you start working with them, they'll probably give you a schedule, as I'm about to go on to here. They'll give you a schedule of when they need various information throughout the project. And finally, it's really important to agree, well, I should have put also, make sure you have a contract with your designer. I'm sure they will, but that's also very important. But agree to a schedule at the start of your project, just so that you're both on the same page for the key dates that you both need to meet, so that neither one of you is waiting on the other one, and that you're both aware of exactly what to expect from each other and the overall design process. It'll also give you both an idea of when to expect the website to start and when it's going to end. So what to consider if you're going to do it yourself? The first thing you're going to want to think about if you're DIYing a website is which platform you're going to build the website on. Excuse me, croaky throat today. Should have made a cup of tea. I didn't. I lied in the opening slide. No tea today, only water. That was my downfall. So first you're going to want to select a platform for your website. I would spend a bit of time on this stage and really look at the different platforms that are out there. People will work better with different platforms. Some require slightly more tech knowledge than others, but really at this stage, they're all quite user friendly. It's really just what appeals most to you, maybe what you've got some experience with in the past, or what you can find the most sort of resources online for to help you with tutorials. Some of the main ones out there are WordPress, Squarespace, Showit, and Wix. WordPress was traditionally the more complicated, less user-friendly one, but honestly nowadays there are so many templates that you can use that allow for dragging and dropping for putting the website together. You can edit the actual website, the live website, rather than doing it sort of at the back end. So they're all really quite similar in their usability. In fact, Wix is supposed to be one of the easier ones to use, I believe. I've tried it and it messes with my mind. I'm a Squarespace person, but I've used WordPress in the past as well, and I really like using it. So they've all got their pros and cons. If you can sort of tinker about with some of them before you really commit, a lot of them allow for a free trial. Excuse me. So just do a bit of research. I think it's important that you've got the platform that's really going to suit you the best. And probably next week, I might talk a little bit more about each of these platforms and which one would maybe suit each of you best. Excuse me. And just as I was saying there, each of the platforms maybe match your current tech skills differently. So just have a look at that when you're selecting the platform. Budget is another consideration. They all have costs associated with them. WordPress could probably tend to be the least expensive. With that, you'll have to pay for the hosting and your domain. So usually there's websites like GoDaddy, 123reg, 1&1. All these people are where you could buy hosting from and also from the domain, and they all have sort of one-click WordPress downloads. We'll probably maybe touch on that a bit more next week. But that's usually, so it's just sort of a hosting and the domain that you're paying for there. Squarespace, Showit, Wix all have either a monthly or an annual subscription. The benefit of them, as far as I know, over WordPress is that it's a bit more of a one-stop shop. You get your hosting, your domain, and everything sort of just under the one price. It's a little bit easier to keep track of all the different bits and bobs that you need to get the website online. But again, just sort of trial and error, see at the start, or not even trial and error because that would take too much time. Just do a little bit of watching of some YouTube videos, a little bit of reading. You'll soon learn which one you think is going to be the platform for you. And again, just look at what tutorials and courses are out there, either free guides or paid tutorials. There'll be something that can walk you through building your website no matter what platform you choose. There's a lot of great free resources out there, so just have a look at that before you commit. And similarly to if you're working with a designer, planning your website, it's really the same sort of thing. So consider exactly what it is you want from your website, what you want it to do, and how you want it to help your business. I heard a really good analogy for a website just yesterday. If you don't have a shop that people can walk into and physically look at your products, pick them up, smell them, maybe that's not very hygienic, but you know what I mean, they can't actually be in the same space as your product. Your website is like a virtual shopfront. It's where you can welcome people in, where you can showcase your products, how you can help them, and really inspire them to want to work with you or to want to order from you and buy your delicious cakes. Which that was a really good way of thinking about a website and how it can really help your business. So again, following on from that, when you're planning your website, you're thinking about taking your taking the user of the website through a journey. So we'll talk about that in the next slide. Again, have a batch of high quality images and gather together all your text and your copy. So, how to plan your website. So there's a download that goes with this. That is another PDF document. As I said, I've popped that into the Files tab of the Facebook group. So if you go in there, you'll be able to download it. And that kind of talks you through this in a lot more detail, but I'll just sort of skim over it here. So when you're planning your website, you can look at it like a bit of a map. You've got your home page, and then you've got all the pages that kind of filter off that, and you'll end up sort of taking the user of the website through these pages in a bit of a series. So when you're starting, think about what pages you'll need in your website, what ones are important to what you sell. Think about how each page will serve the user, the future customer, how they'll learn more from that page, how it will serve them, how it will really encourage them to buy from you. And think about how you can lead them through the site. So in this little map here, you can see from the home page, they might think, oh, I want to find out about this person. So they'll go to the About page. There you can link them to your gallery. They'll see your cakes, and then they can go straight to the Order Now, or they maybe want a little bit more information. They'll click on to prices. If they're happy with the price, they'll go straight to Order Now. They might have some more questions. They'll click on frequently asked questions, and from there they can go to order. So usually order or book a consultation or contact is the number one place you want people to go. But again, it really depends. If you've got a shop where you're selling biscuits, maybe through your website, you'll be leading them towards that. If it's your blog that you're leading people towards because you're trying to get people onto your mailing list so you can keep in contact with them and bring in business that way, it might be that's the key focus of your website. So just think about how you're going to plan out your website at this stage. So I'll just click over to the free planning guide. It should hopefully pop up on your screen. So this just basically outlines what I've been talking about in a bit more detail. I go through the different pages that you would maybe want on your website. So we've got the home page, the gallery, menu flavors, pricing, your about page, a contact page, and a blog. So I just talk about why you would use each of those pages, what you would maybe feature on each of those pages, the frequently asked questions, and then again, as I mentioned earlier, the images are really the key to your website. They really sell your product, sell your cakes. So having a few really brilliant images on your website are really what's going to make the difference. As you know, people eat with their eyes first, so you need some beautiful images on your homepage to really just sell those cakes that you make, because I'm sure they taste delicious. And then finally, in this PDF, I ask you some questions that will help you to start thinking about planning your website. So as I've talked about, what is the primary function of your website? You can just type that answer in here to keep it all in one place for you. What's the one thing you want customers to do? So again, I've just talked about that. Is it that you want them to order? Is it you want them to read your blog? You want them to visit your online shop? And this is an important one. How will customers remember your website? Just as you want them to remember your business, and that could probably be actually interchangeable in this question. How will customers remember your business after they've been to your website? So it's maybe through those striking images, it's maybe through some of the copy, just the way you speak to them. They really get a feel of your personality through the words that you use on the website. So just think about that when you're going through the planning stage. Then I talk a little bit about the design. So what is your business mission statement? This could be that you want to make parties more fantastic through beautiful and tasty celebration cakes. That is off the top of my head and probably not brilliant, but think about the mission statement of your business, and that will help to inform what kind of images you choose, what kind of text you use, how the design looks. So if you're focusing on really elegant, high-end wedding cakes, the whole of your website will have to sort of speak to that kind of client. If you're focusing on sort of really intricate fondant cakes for birthday parties, then that would be a totally different website. It'd be maybe more colourful, more fun, the language might be more casual. So thinking about exactly who your business is aiming at will help you decide on the design of the website. Similarly, describing your ideal customer will again inform that. What makes you stand out in your field, whatever that is what you want to be sort of at the forefront on your website. List some websites you love the look at, you love the look of. That'll just help you just start to get those creative juices flowing, what inspires you. So either if you're going to work with a designer, you can use these to say, I really love this part of this website, I really love this part of this other website, or just to inspire yourself when you're DIYing. And then the last section is a bit more practical, thinking about what pages you need and what social media accounts. So it's quite handy to just fill that out, and it's a good, neat point of reference for you to look at when you are designing your website or when you're working with a website designer. So I hope I haven't spoken too fast. I am aware I've been rattling through all that information, but hopefully you've picked up most of it. And if you have any questions at all, please leave a comment when you have the time to watch this video. I don't think anyone's got any questions at the moment. Everyone's probably, well, actually it's after dinner. I'm going to eat my dinner now. So thank you very much for joining me. Next week will be the last video